Coming up, it's a song that can only be described as epic. Originally radio-friendly in length, it later grew to monster proportions, swallowing up an entire side of an album. All thanks to a prolonged jam session that just wouldn't stop. The engineer liked what he heard, so he kept the tape rolling, and when it was done, this band had made history. Plus, this gibberish title had listeners wondering what in the world this song was really about. Turns out the singer was so sloshed when he first sang it, his bandmates thought he was singing something else entirely. But they liked it, so they kept it. And later on, they would have a chance to perform this legendary track at Woodstock. But after they pissed off the performance coordinator, they found themselves stranded at the airport. Could they get there in time to play the most epic gig ever? Coming up, an incredible tale next on Professor of Rock. Hey Music Junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the ancient stick of gum that came inside of Garbage Pail Kids or baseball cards, man, you're going to dig this channel of extreme musical nostalgia, getting the time machine every day. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so you always get our interviews and stories. I know you're going to dig what you see here. Like it says, it's a time machine. Also, check us out on Patreon for even more content. Check us out on Instagram. Full interviews we're releasing on Patreon, and our merch is below. So it's time for another edition of our series, Bottle Lightning. This is where we celebrate a song or an album that was king for a day or many days. As many of you know, we honor artists here and bands that rocketed up the charts, but for reasons unknown, they just weren't able to sustain that success. Called by a lot as one-hit wonders. We celebrate them as lightning in a bottle here. Previous episodes, we've covered Incense and Peppermint by Strawberry Alarm Clock, a DOA by Blood Rock, and Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum.
Your mind, incense and peppermint's the color of time. When I look, I see there's nothing there. Going up to the Spirit sky.
But today, we're going to give you a song that is actually longer than all of those combined. It's a 17-minute plus masterclass jam session that confused listeners back in the day who were trying to figure out what the hell is the singer saying and what the song really meant. I'm talking about Iron Butterfly with their epic length classic track, In-a-Gadda-da-Vida, from their 1968 album of the same name. I tell you, my parents had this on vinyl and 8-track, and my dad told me the story as a young child. So just for a little context here, by the end of the 60s, there was a significant swell of bands playing a heavier sound than ever before, with doomsday riffs, fuzz, distorted guitars. Looking back on those days with the benefit of hindsight, these heavy rockers are often referred to as proto-metal acts, the pioneers of heavy metal. Even though many will argue different points here, there really is no clear set-in-stone moment when heavy metal burst into existence. It wasn't like a Big Bang moment, really. It was a gradual process. And complicating matters is the fact that the definition of what heavy metal is has really changed over time. Plus, tracking the development of any musical genre is an inexact process to say. I mean, styles blend with each other all the time. It's really never a consistent linear evolution, really. Now, that being said, this loose genre label of proto-metal acts includes bands diverse as Vanilla Fudge, Cream, Steppenwolf, Jethro Tull, and Grand Funk Railroad, among others. You can even argue early Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple should be part of that mix as well. Again, I'm not calling them metal, merely saying their music led to the development of the genre or the music. If you want to beef up on some of this process, you can check out our other episodes in the past on Cream, and Deep Purple, Steppenwolf, and Zeppelin. There's plenty to choose from the development of this, but for today, we're going to zero in on another band who had a critical influence on the genre, like I said, Iron Butterfly.
Don't you know that humble
Originally comprised of vocalist and organist Doug Ingle, drummer Jack Penny, bassist Greg Willis, and guitarist Danny Weiss. This San Diego-based outfit, they were born in 1966, one of the best years of music. In conversation with the San Diego Reader, Penny, Willis, and Weiss discussed the band's origins and why they chose the name Iron Butterfly. Danny explained that when the band first came together, they wanted a name that was heavy, so to speak, and also beautiful. Iron Butterfly captured both of these ideas. It was a name of contrast, if you will. Iron was obviously symbolic of heaviness of their sound, while a butterfly described the band's lighter, appealing, and versatile nature. Funny thing is, the name wasn't even theirs to begin with, though. They actually nicked it from another band. The name came from San Francisco, is what Penny would say. He said that we were playing a show with the Friendly Stranger and the Iron Butterfly, but the Iron Butterfly, they never showed up. They broke up on the way down to this gig, and we thought it was a pretty good name, so, we snagged it. Iron Butterfly emerged in 1966 as one of psychedelia's most iconic groups. Originating in San Diego, the band moved to Los Angeles to play the historic club circuit there. And at first, their following was limited to the Los Angeles underground. However, it wasn't long before they were discovered and they got their big break. In 1968, the guys were signed by Atlantic Records' Charles Green. He would also co-produce their first album, which was appropriately named Heavy. Iron Butterfly also headed out on tour with acid rock staples Jefferson Airplane and also The Doors.
And if you go chasing rabbits and
come on, baby, light my fire.
Heavy was the introduction of a completely new sound. It was released on January 22nd, 1968, early in the year. It included the non-charting single Unconscious Power, and it stayed on the U.S. charts for about 50 weeks. However, everyone but Ingle and Bushy left the band after its completion in the late summer of '67. The two remaining musicians, realizing the record was in jeopardy as a result, they quickly found replacements, bassist Lee Dorman and a 17-year-old guitarist named Eric Braun. Eric Brand, a.k.a. Eric Braun. The sound Iron Butterfly introduced on Heavy became even more prominent on their second studio album, In-a-Gadda-da-Vida. Listeners ate it up. This LP shot into the top 10 and stayed there for months. It peaked at number 4. It was officially certified a gold album in 1968 in the US and later certified platinum ×4. Globally, it sold over 8 million copies within its first years of release. A lot of people don't realize this, but it actually outsold every record in the history of recorded music up to that point in time. Actually, later it would tally more than 30 million copies worldwide. And until Led Zeppelin came along, it was the best-selling album in the history of Atlantic Records. Let that sink in for a second. Side 1 consists of 5 tracks: Most Anything You Want, Flowers and Beads, My Mirage, Termination, and Are You Happy? In total, these 5 tracks turn in a runtime of about 18 minutes, 55 seconds, just under 19.
Most anything that you want, girl, dear. Flowers and beads are one thing, and I see a mirage. And as I'm scanning closer, those names tempt me on. My mind's drifting back to you.
That's just a minute and 50 seconds longer than Side 2's solitary track, and today's featured song, In-a-Gadda-da-Vida. For those of you that might be allergic to math, that means Side 2's In-a-Gadda-da-Vida clocks in at 17 minutes and 5 seconds. Yeah, it's a monster. Now, as we continue to break it down, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. So right now, you can turn any pair of glasses or frames that you get from these guys into sunglasses or tints, starting at just $7.95. Make sure to click on our info button right up here, or the link in the description, so you can go create your own Zennies and get up to 80% off of regular retail prices. It just can't be beat. So even though In-a-Gadda-da-Vida landed on their second album, it was actually written early enough for a spot on their debut album, Heavy. According to Ron Bushy, organist / vocalist Doug Ingle, He wrote the song one night while drinking an entire gallon of Red Mountain wine. That's what it was. In a drunken state, Ingle then played the song for Bushy and told him to transcribe the lyrics. However, Doug was slurring his words so badly that when he sang the phrase in the Garden of Eden, Bushy heard in-a-gadda-da-vida. Ultimately, the guys liked the sloshed version of these lyrics a lot better, and they decided to go with those words instead. So those became the lyrics. The record company, they liked it too. Sounded exotic. Eastern spirituality, you got to remember, it was big at this time. You know, with the Beatles going to India and the Stones experimenting with Indian instruments. Seemed like a good fit. Now, when Ingle initially wrote the song, he didn't intend for it to be 17 plus minutes long. Typically, Iron Butterfly songs were fairly structured. But that's just how it played out when the band recorded it. While waiting for their producer Jim Hilton to arrive, they played an extended jam at soundcheck to test levels for their engineer, Don Cassell. Cassell, though, had the tape rolling the whole time, and after the rehearsal was complete, the guys just all agreed that they should keep the performance as it was. In-a-gadda-da-vida contained everything that a progressive rock band could want. You know, neoclassical organ with Eastern influence, a decent beat, screeching guitar, and an overly long drum solo. You know, the track was no doubt very heavy for its time, and the entire song is basically guitar riff driven. As for the song's content, the lyrics are essentially a love song from Adam, the first red man on the earth, to Eve in the Garden of Eden. The lines are just really simple and brief. In-a-gadda-da-vida, honey, don't you know that I'm loving you? In-a-gadda-da-vida, baby, don't you know that I'll always be true?
Don't you know that I'll always be true?
Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh, won't you come with me and walk this land? Pretty much ABC lyrics there. Not exactly deep stuff, but let's be honest, if you're listening to In-a-gadda-da-vida, it's not really because you're looking for lyrical enlightenment per se. After the lyric comes to an end, the track goes on into a jam session, a jam of all jams. A 15-minute breakaway into some serious head-swirling acid rock, including a 2.5-minute drum solo courtesy of Ron Bushy. After that, Doug Ingle's organ solo immediately follows. As the song closes out, we get a return to the same sparse lyrics that we heard in the beginning, all set against an epic musical backdrop. Now, even though the lyrics are kind of ABC, In-a-gadda-da-vida, nobody knew what that meant, so that was very mysterious. So in a way, they were deep.
Don't you know that I'm loving you? In-a-gadda.
So a single version of In-a-gadda-da-vida was edited down to just under 3 minutes, cutting out more than 14 minutes of the original. Some pop stations played the single, but that wasn't enough for hardcore fans. Ultimately, much of the song's airplay came via progressive FM radio, which played the full-length version and was just coming out at the time. But to get it all, listeners had to buy the album, which was brilliant, and of course they did do that. The greatly edited single appeared on the Billboard Hot 100 in August of 1968, peaked at number 30, and stayed on the chart for 17 weeks. It ranked higher in the Netherlands at number 7, and elsewhere it came in at number 43 in Canada, and number 49 in Belgium, and number 92 in Australia. But it was brilliant that they put it out on the album because, again, it sold millions and millions of copies. So get this, Iron Butterfly, they were also slotted to perform at the Woodstock Festival in 1969. However, after they were invited, they got stranded at New York's LaGuardia Airport, and they explained their predicament to the concert's promoters. They asked for their patience, but in the meantime, their manager, he sent an ill-advised telegram with a specific list of demands. You will send a helicopter to LaGuardia, pick us up, bring us back. We will go immediately on stage in front of everybody else, and then we'll be given a helicopter and flown back. Now, according to Ron Bushy, they went down to the Port Authority 3 times and they waited for this helicopter. It never showed up. The band, they didn't make it out of the airport and they missed their chance to play historic Woodstock. So Woodstock production coordinator John Morris, he's reported to have sent a coded telegram in response to Iron Butterfly's manager. It read, and listen very carefully here, for reasons I can't go into / until you are here / clarifying your situation / knowing you are having problems / you will have to find / other transportation / unless you plan not to come. So if you take the first letter of each of those sentences and spell it all out, you will get Morris's real message here. For a hint, let's just say that it begins with F and ends with U. Maybe Iron Butterfly's manager would have gotten a better response if he'd remembered to say please. I'm just saying. Anyway, but as it was, we can only wonder what might have been. Iron Butterfly at Woodstock, I think it would have been an epic performance for sure. It's hard to believe that a band that had the hottest song at the time, biggest album, was passed over. I just don't think that would happen today. I think they'd figure it out. Well, as far as pop culture goes, in-a-gadda-da-vida has appeared in a few different movies and TV shows from the Wonder Years. I love how they used it there.
Okay.
Groovy.
To Manhunter to Seinfeld.
Finally. Okay, listen, I need somebody to come over here right away.
The song was front and center for a comedic bit in the Simpsons episode Bart Sells a Soul, where Bart switches out a hymn at church for this song, convincing the Reverend Lovejoy that it was composed by someone named Ron Butterfly. In-a-gadda-da-vida, it's also been covered by a long list of bands. There's Crowded House, Randy Jackson, Rollins Band, Kemper Van Beethoven, Santana, Tom Jones, Bare Naked Ladies Slayer, The Smashing Pumpkins. Bruce Springsteen actually covered it. The Smithereens did, Soundgarden, They Might Be Giants, Patti Smith, and Los Lobos. After In-a-gadda-da-vida, Iron Butterfly, they released 2 more albums, Ball in 1969 and Metamorphosis in 1970. Then they disbanded in 71. The breakup would be temporary, however. The band would reemerge in 74 with Ron Bushy and Eric Braun at the helm. Doug Engel and Lee Dorman were replaced by Philip Taylor Kramer on bass, keyboard, and vocals, and then Howard Reitz is on keys and vocals as well. More albums would follow after that. There was Scorching Beauty, Sun and Steel in 75. Between 69 and 75, actually Iron Butterfly would release 10 more singles. Only 3 of those would break into the Hot 100. Soul Experience went to number 75. In the Time of Our Lives just barely made it at 96. And Easy Rider, Let the Wind Pay the Way, that was the closest to a hit, coming in at 66. So the band never had another top 40 hit.
Soul experience, help yourselves to each other as it beats our lives away. He's a glider, to the wind and pay the way. That's all it ever does.
They are the definition of lightning in a bottle. Throughout its existence, Iron Butterflies continued pressing forward with a dizzying array of changing lineups, plus more breakups, more reunions, but all with little commercial success, unfortunately. Actually, Bushy passed away just a few years back, leaving Doug Engel as the only surviving member of Iron Butterfly's In-a-gadda-da-vida roster. I gotta tell you, this song, it was a huge part of my childhood. I remember helping my dad out in the shop one day, and he said, "Hey, do you want to hear the longest hit song ever?" I was, of course, immediately curious. I knew there was going to be a cool story coming. As I've shared before, my dad had an 8-track player out there, and he used to play all the music he collected over the years in his shop. He showed me the cover, and the psychedelic imagery, it perplexed me. So he pops in the 8-track, and I hear that beginning organ. Once we're a few minutes in, I say to my dad, "You know what? It kind of sounds like Cream, Sunshine of Your Love." Another song that my dad had shown me just years before.
It's getting near dawn.
He then spent the next 10 minutes telling me the story of Iron Butterfly in in-a-gadda-da-vida. How he and his friends used to share urban legends about what the song meant. How they shared stories about how it was created. They made up stories. None of these stories that he told me are actually true, but being a part of my dad's history, his growing up years, hearing those stories, it was one of my favorite things. So much rich history that was always tied to the music. In-a-gadda-da-vida, it was so long, like I said, it took up two sides on it. It's program C and program D on the 8-track. So coming back to Sunshine of Your Love for a second, to me the guitar sounds very similar. And I used to argue back and forth with my dad about this. Now, Sunshine was recorded a full year before in April of '67, and in-a-gadda-da-vida, that was in May of 1968. I don't know, what do you think? My dad said that he and his friends used to try to glean hidden messages from this song of what it meant. He'd tell me all the same things about, the Beatles albums, that took us down the Paul is Dead rabbit hole, the mysticism and wonder, the magic of rock and roll. It's a lost art. It's slowly disintegrating. We got to keep this magic alive somehow. So do me a favor, show this to one of your kids or your grandkids. Share the mysteries. I try to do this with my kids every day, like my dad did with me. It's the unrivaled power of rock and roll. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Iron Butterfly and In-a-gadda-da-vida. What are your memories of this song? What did you think that it meant? What are some of the urban legends that were shared? This is back before the internet, so you couldn't look it up. You could share your own stories. It was really cool. I love this. Tell me what you think. Share your memories. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. Hit us up on Patreon. It's all about keeping the music alive. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.